In the quiet shadow of medieval castles and bustling village squares, there existed a world rarely spoken of in chronicles or sermons, the world of intimacy. When we think of the Middle Ages, we picture battles, famine, religion, and hardship. But what about love, sex, and relationships? What did intimacy mean in an era ruled by the church, disease, and rigid class hierarchies? Welcome to Dark Age Archives. Today we explore a deeply human topic, the intimate lives of medieval people. This is a YouTube-friendly journey into the daily experiences of love, marriage, sexuality, and the secrets that were whispered behind wooden shutters and abbey walls. This episode is fully YouTube safe and meant to inform, not sensationalize. So let's begin. In medieval Europe, intimacy was shaped by three pillars: religion, law, and survival. The church viewed sexuality primarily through a moral lens, natural within marriage, sinful outside it. Marriage was not always about love. In noble families, it was a political contract. Among peasants, it was a matter of economic survival. But that didn't mean people didn't feel love, passion, or desire. The human heart beat just as loudly then as it does today. For most of the Middle Ages, the church's position was clear. Sex was meant for procreation. Pleasure was suspicious, an indulgence of the flesh. Confession manuals, which guided priests on how to question sinners, asked detailed questions about sexual acts, positions, and even thoughts. The idea was to root out not just sinful behavior, but sinful imagination. Despite this, people found ways to express affection and desire. Love letters were exchanged. Poems were written in secret. In towns and villages, courtship customs emerged, from dances and festivals to gift-giving and whispered meetings. In some parts of Europe, bundling was practiced, an odd tradition where two unmarried individuals would lie together, sometimes separated by a board or fully clothed, to talk and bond under parental supervision. Peasant homes offered little privacy. Most families lived in one-room huts, often sharing sleeping space with children, animals, or extended relatives. For the poor, intimacy required discretion, or simply resignation to being seen. Among the wealthier, private chambers allowed for more secrecy, but servants were often present, and nothing was truly hidden in a medieval household. As for relationships, they were regulated by law and custom. Betrothals could be arranged in childhood, especially among the nobility. Dowries were negotiated like contracts. In some cases, marriages could be annulled if not consummated, which made the wedding night a matter of public interest. But love, real, tender love, did exist. Courtly love, popularized by troubadours and poets, celebrated emotional and often forbidden affection, sometimes between married women and unattainable knights. Though often idealized, these stories revealed a truth: that the human longing for connection transcended social rules. Sexual health, however, was a more mysterious matter. Medieval medicine was based on the humoral theory, the balance of four fluids in the body. It was believed that sexual activity could rebalance or disturb these humors. For example, it was thought that too much sex could deplete vital energy, while celibacy could lead to melancholia. Herbal remedies were used to treat impotence or increase fertility. Midwives and wise women sometimes acted as advisors in such matters, though their role was often marginalized or even criminalized by church authorities. Birth control, though discouraged, was not entirely unknown. Herbal concoctions, Pessaries made from wool soaked in mixtures of honey and herbs, and withdrawal methods were all attempted. The Church strictly condemned such practices, especially anything viewed as interfering with the natural order. Nonetheless, human nature often outpaced theology. Prostitution existed in every major town, often tolerated as a necessary evil. In some places, brothels were taxed and regulated. Prostitutes wore specific clothing to distinguish them from honest women. These establishments were frequented not only by single men but also by married ones, soldiers, and clergy. The contradiction between the Church's moral teachings and society's realities was ever present. Homosexuality was officially condemned, yet there are records, especially from urban centers and monasteries, that suggest intimate same-sex relationships did occur, often discreetly. Punishments could be severe, but enforcement varied widely by region and era. The existence of same-sex affection, though hidden, was real. Consent was a complicated matter. In noble families, marriage could occur without emotional consent, but consummation without physical consent, particularly in the case of minors, was increasingly frowned upon by the 13th century. Among commoners, relationships were somewhat more flexible, but women's voices were still often marginalized. Rape was a crime, but its prosecution depended heavily on social status and witnesses. In summary, intimacy in the Middle Ages was neither purely repressive nor romantic. It was complicated, shaped by cultural norms, survival, and individual creativity. People longed, loved, suffered, and sought connection just as we do now. So, when we picture the medieval world, let's remember, behind every stone wall or cottage door was a story of affection, struggle, and human vulnerability. And that, perhaps, is the most timeless thing of all. This is Dark Age Archives. Subscribe for more unfiltered glimpses into the past, 3 times a week. In noble households, intimacy carried the burden of politics and inheritance. A queen's duty was not only to bear children, but preferably sons. If she didn't, it could mean annulment, exile, or a contested throne. Many noble women lived with the fear that their value was tied solely to their fertility. At the same time, some medieval women held surprising power in their relationships. In peasant communities, a strong-willed wife could dominate domestic affairs. In noble courts, politically savvy queens and mistresses influenced the direction of kingdoms. Letters between husbands and wives, when preserved, often reveal deep affection and partnership, even in arranged marriages. The role of clergy added another layer of complexity. While monks and nuns took vows of chastity, not all remained celibate. Scandals, secret relationships, and even children born in monasteries were not unheard of. Church authorities condemned these breaches, but human behavior didn't always align with doctrine. Art and literature also reflected intimacy. Illuminated manuscripts included risque marginalia, playful, often bawdy images tucked between the lines of religious texts. Court poetry and folk songs explored themes of passion, longing, and betrayal. These cultural artifacts reveal that intimacy was not merely tolerated. It was a source of fascination and expression. The experience of widows and widowers is another window into medieval intimacy. Losing a spouse often plunged one into economic and social uncertainty, especially for women. Yet remarriage was common. Love could bloom again. Some widows even found greater freedom in widowhood, escaping the restrictions of their earlier married life. Children were not always born in wedlock. Records from towns and villages include many instances of single mothers, disputed paternity, and children born of sin. These situations were socially difficult, but not rare. Often, communities found practical ways to absorb such realities, balancing shame with necessity. Legal and church documents also reveal the existence of clandestine marriages, unofficial unions based on mutual consent but lacking public or clerical approval. These were especially common in rural areas, where access to clergy was limited. Though discouraged, they were often tolerated if stable and consensual. Let us not forget the role of festivals and celebrations in shaping intimacy. Carnival season, May Day, and other popular feasts often suspended normal rules. Masks, dancing, and communal drinking blurred social lines and allowed otherwise forbidden encounters. Though the church disapproved, these events were part of the emotional and social fabric of medieval life. Even the architecture of medieval homes reflected intimacy. Curtain beds offered privacy. Separate sleeping quarters, when available, allowed couples moments of seclusion. Yet, in many homes, intimacy had to coexist with shared space, creaking floors, and thin walls. Ultimately, intimacy in the Middle Ages was shaped by contradictions between desire and duty, faith and instinct, law and love. People found ways to be close, even under the watchful eye of God, king, or neighbor. So the next time you think of the Middle Ages, imagine not just the castles and cathedrals, but also the quiet moments. Two lovers stealing a glance, a letter folded beneath a pillow, a whispered promise beneath a starry sky. This is Dark Age Archives. Subscribe for more hidden stories from history,